love a bit of March of the Oysters to kick off my Friday evening. Hello, everyone. Welcome. This evening, we are going to be talking all about the Stingray W.A.S.P Technical Operations Manual. My name is Jack Knoll, and I will be your host for this evening. I hope you're all having a fantastic evening. Yes, Doug Morris, we do like March of the Oysters. We very much do. Tom Clements, stand by for action. We're about to launch Stingray. Yes, we certainly are. Now, of course, I am joined by the magnificent Mr. Chris Thompson, who...
Hello.
He had to do the hair thing, didn't he? All right. And here's AC, who... Hello, guys.
Hello.
Way to totally deflate the entire energy of the evening. No, how are you guys this evening?
I'm doing good.
And I am also doing good. There you go, Jack. Back to you.
Whoa, yeah. All right, here we go. Yes, of course, we've got all the lovely booksterons, tubesterons, podsterons, everyone. If you are watching on Facebook, please do head to streamyard.com/Facebook to authorize your comments so that we can see you. Hello, Peach. Hello, Emily. Hello, Willie Bowen. Hello. It's good to see you. Watson Make says dive. Yes, absolutely. Because we're talking all about Stingray, and specifically, well, we're talking about the W.A.S.P Technical Operations Manual, which, of course, Chris and AC are responsible for entirely. It's all their fault. But we're going to be going through, giving you an exclusive teaser of some of the contents of the book and just sharing a little bit of insight about what goes into making these books a reality, as well as some other fun and games coming up a little bit later on. We're going to be playing a few games. Excuse me, we're going live. Here I am losing control of myself. We are gonna be also talking a little bit about the Space Precinct 30th anniversary box set as well, which I believe these two chaps have something to do with as well. But that will be coming up a little bit later on. But the main thing we're going to be focusing on today is W.A.S.P Technical Operations Manual. It is available to pre-order right now on the Gerry Anderson store. Head over to shop.gerryanderson.com and you will find it there, amongst all sorts of other goodies, which we're going to be talking about. And, of course, the limited special edition is available as well. Only 500 copies available, and over half of those have already sold out. So if you want a special edition, make sure you pre-order it to secure your copy so you are not going to be disappointed. Chris.
Hello.
This is book number 5 in the whole series. What's it been like coming to do Stingray after all of the previous entries to the manual series?
Well, it's funny because this was the one I really wanted to do, because we did Space 1999 kind of as sort of, it just sort of led in quite well in terms of pitching stuff. But the second one I wanted to do was Stingray. And it took us a little while to get here, and it actually has been the hardest one, oddly enough, which for reasons we can get into later. But yeah, no, it's great to be here. It's taken a bit longer than anticipated, just because I don't know if people have noticed, but we've been doing a lot this year.
Yeah, we've been quite busy. It's been a Stingray year, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. Andrew, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about everything that's been going into Stingray's 60th anniversary this year, and how on earth you found the time to also work on the technical manual as well. What's been happening so far this year? If anyone who's been living under a rock, maybe under the sea, maybe somewhere near Titanica, yeah, what's been happening?
Well, hey, that could happen very easily. So yeah, as you say, Jack, it's been a very busy year for Stingray. It's the 60th anniversary year, and we've spent a lot of that time running through the Stingray Deadly Uprising multi-platform narrative that's been telling a vast, epic story through novels and audiobooks and comics and a live stage performance. A big brand new Stingray story for the 60th anniversary, just to celebrate Stingray and its madcap legendary antics. And just to echo what Chris said, I was really looking forward to this manual in particular because I have a real fondness for Stingray. And yeah, it's been a bit of a bumpy road getting to it, but I think people are going to love what we've managed to put together. So I'm looking forward to diving in and talking a bit more about that too.
Diving in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You did it.
Very good. Very good. Speaking of the manual, let's talk a little bit first about the special edition, because the special edition, as usual, includes all sorts of extra bonus goodies, and it's going to be beautifully presented in a lovely presentation box. Chris, perhaps you can talk through some of the elements that have been put together especially for the special edition.
Well, I think it's important to mention first off, a lot of the publicity had a placeholder for the box and what was in it, but this is what it looks like. So lovely box with like the Stingray schematic on it and stuff. The special edition, we've also got some artwork. My favorite artwork from the manual, which is like Stingray getting attacked by a giant sea snake, because I love the megafauna. We have a political underwater civilizations map, and that covers our best attempt to work out where everything is. Like, where is Titanica? What is roughly the reach of Titanica? Where's Pacifica? Where's Ignitia? Where's like all these random bits and bobs? Like, where may the pink ice aliens possibly live? And it's all kind of like we did on Fireball. It's all based on little clues from the show. Yes, we've also got this spotter's guide, which represents most of what's in the manual. There's a few ships that didn't quite fit on here because, as you can see, the sea leopard does take up a lot of room.
Yeah,
but we got to count. We do cover pretty much most of W.A.S.P. And then we do quite a bit of the alien races. We have mostly W.A.S.P. stuff to show you today, but possibly the most fun part of the entire book is trying to work out sort of how all the alien races interact, and like slight origin stories, and like how might they have interacted, and what is their relationship with each other, what's the relationship with Titan. Because I did find in the original show, it's very much Fireball XL5, but just underwater. And it doesn't really take into account the fact that these civilizations are miles from each other as opposed to being on different planets. And obviously, they've been underwater this entire time while humanity's been doing their own thing. So how does that relate? So yeah, it's been pretty fun. And obviously, people can see this stuff from the comics in there as well, which is always important because Stingray has some very good comics.
Yeah. And indeed, Rich Goodborn has been looking very, very carefully at this and has spotted the Orca, which we'll be talking a little bit about later on. But AC, briefly, what is Orca? I don't know why I asked it in that weird way.
I don't know why you said it like that, but I can tell you a little bit about what Orca is. So Orca is a dedicated W.A.S.P.-built warship that is the brand new class of submarine that the W.A.S.P. has developed as a potential successor to the Stingray style submarine. It's larger, more heavily armed, has additional features. You'll have to see the manual to find out exactly what those are, but it's just, as Phones refers to it at one point, a big brute of a boat, and very heavily armored, and a very nice looking thing. And I think Chris has done a fabulous job with the design on that as well.
Yes, and we'll get a close-up look at that later on. But right now, let's dive into some pages. Let's open up the book and take a good long look. So, of course, Stingray, being a Stingray book, Stingray's going to have, quite a starring role in this. So, Chris, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about just how much detail have you covered For example, do we know where the toilets are? That sort of thing.
We do find out where the toilets are.
Excellent. Well, that's all I needed to know. I'm sold.
End the thing now.
Okay.
No. So Stingray, because it's a much more terrestrial object. Again, with the whole Fireball XL5 analogy, there's a lot of stuff that Stingray does that is incredibly futuristic and also not necessarily explained. And one of those is that it travels at 600 knots. which is about the speed of a fighter jet. So there's a lot of elements where we sort of explain how that works, and there's also trying to work out, because Stingray's also not very big. Once you factor in those like the little plasticine figures that they put on the boat, whenever there's people outside, or even just trying to like marry up the cockpit between the interior set and the exterior model, there's not a whole lot of room in there for stuff. So it's we've been trying to like work out that as best we can, and yeah, also show some new bits you never got to see in the show.
Yes. So, for example, we have a page here on the engine room.
This
is all new. We never saw this in the original series, but you have figured it all out. Tell us a little bit about this.
So we know Stingray's nuclear, and we know it travels ridiculously fast. So there was so my friend Nick, he is a physicist, and also like he ran a D&D game for me, Nick Larkin, and he helped out on this. But basically, we kind of worked out that the only way for Stingray to be able to travel as fast as it does is for a process of partial supercavitation, which
sounds really complicated, and I want you to explain it to me in no less than 5 words.
Pump, air, ship, go. Zoom.
Well, yeah, great.
Like, yeah, so you get to work out, just trying to work out exactly like how the different engine parts in Stingray go, because you can see there's 2 separate types of engine, because it's got the exhaust things, and it's also got the rate master. But yeah, also designing the engine room was quite fun, because I got to recycle a bunch of bits from Fireball, and I got to hopefully just show something that's new and interesting that looks like it could have been a puppet set as well.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it could have appeared in the TV series if it had been there. Like, you can definitely see the influences of the rest of like the Stingray set that we do see in the show. That's very much apparent here in all the bright colors and things like that. Of course, I'm imagining that there was a lot of over the course of designing the whole book, there are a lot of primary colors that went into this, I'm guessing.
Yes, filmed in video color. You could say
very much so. Very much so.
Like one of the helpful things though this time is that I didn't have to manually colorize every screen grab in the thing, so that has been helpful.
Yes. So that was for Fireball. You had to go through and colorize everything. So Fireball manual, by the way, still available from the Gerry Anderson store, and all the previous manuals. So you should go and pick those up. But also Stingray. We're going to talk about Stingray. My goodness me. So let's just hop back here. Now, the Aqua Sprites. Talking of things that don't appear very much at all, we have the Aqua Sprites, which only popped up in the Golden Sea, I believe. Okay, so what was it like?
They used them quite liberally in the comics, I think, but it's just the Golden Sea, and then for whatever reason they were like never again. I think just because they could swim anywhere they need to go. But yeah, no, the Aqua Sprites were something that always fascinated me, because you'd always have a model of Stingray, and there would always be those little like bubbles on the side. And you just have this one episode, this little bit of an episode to work out what they are, and it was fun to just show them in situ. It also like the artwork there kind of showcases the problem I alluded to earlier when it comes to doing Stingray, which is when I do these manuals, I do try and treat everything like a real vehicle all the time. Basically, just because I want to, when I'm doing the artwork, I'm not trying to do it necessarily how they appear in the show, but more how you appear in your imagination after watching the show. And the interesting thing about that is obviously underwater doesn't look like it does in Stingray.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I've had to, I go different directions through the course of this. So sometimes it's like this, which is much more evocative of shallow water. Sometimes it's a bit more fantastical like it is in the show. But yeah, it's trying to find that middle ground has been quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just really cool to be able to see, as I say, we don't see the Aqua Sprites very much on screen. So to be able to get this alternative angle of the interior there is just, it's really nice. And it's such a, obviously, as I say, it's a small, very little scene vehicle. So the fact that you're able to spend so much time detailing every aspect of it is fantastic. Well, it's a real treat.
It's an interesting thing because like you have to jump into the mindset of what would they have done if they needed to show an Aquasprite set. So I have cannibalized bits of the Fireball set from the the second cockpit that they had, Central Control, which would have been what they would have done. So I've changed it up slightly, but I've cut that's sort of like the thought process behind that.
Yeah. It's absolutely gorgeous. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Do you know, it's interesting now that you say that, Chris, even with the Aquasprites, and it's only just occurred to me that using the Aquasprites like that only the once would be kind of, if they had decided to use Fireball Jr. just once in an episode of Fireball and never gone back to using it again. It seems just as bizarre.
That must have been the logic, but Stingray's just so small in comparison, they just never needed it. But then, of course, then they would write an episode like, doesn't Hostages of the Deep just before Golden Sea? And a situation where they could have very much used the Aquasprites in that one.
Yeah,
true.
And then I think they even say something like, even the Aquasprites wouldn't fit, we'll have to use the sea bugs.
It's like you've designed this vehicle that not invented any good situations for it to be used in the next, 30
we have the comics.
Yeah, we do have the comics. Yes, absolutely. Now, as I teased earlier, here is the D-class transport vessel, but most people might recognize this as Downbeat from the episode Tune of Danger. So, of course, this manual is filled with as well as Stingray, all the other submarines that we see throughout the series and in the comic strips as well. So, Chris, what was it like kind of just working on these one-off vehicles that only appeared once, and you get maybe a few shots of them and that's it, and then you're tasked with, hey, let's expand on this and like get much more information out there about it. What's your starting point for doing something like that?
Well, this was particularly interesting because one of the things that you would notice about watching Stingray is that Stingray looks awesome. It's like one of the best vehicle designs ever put to screen. And then every other Wasp vehicle is like a tube. Like it looks like a traditional submarine. And there was an element of trying to work out why that would be the case, other than they didn't have a ton of time to work on the guest vehicles. So that kind of came into a narrative point of view of like, okay, is there a story reason why Sea Probe looks like a U-boat and like Downbeat looks quite old in comparison? And I came up with this idea because WASP is so young as an organization. Like I think canonically it's 2058, 59 AC.
Yep.
It must have been like it's literally only just started up. And I came up with this idea of like a Frankenstein fleet, and there's about 6 pages on the development of Stingray and its various prototypes that led up to it and how they came up with the engine and all the other equipment. But in the interim, all of WASP was trained and manned by these old hand-me-down subs from other organizations like the World Navy or the US Navy or whatever. And this is where you can see here with Downbeat. Downbeat is... my logic for it is that WASP picked up a bunch of these old freighter submarines, and one of them ended up getting dressed up for the WASP band, which I always think is quite funny. But like so on the second page there, you can see what they generally look like normally. And then in the origin of WASP, you see them being converted into the new WASP versions. So from their original World Navy livery. So there's an element of that kind of going in there, trying to like logically come up with all this stuff. But another issue that you tend to find with Stingray in particular is that a lot of the guest vehicles aren't seen that well. And a good example for that is the guard sub from Ghost of the Sea, which turns out is just the light patrol vessel from Fireball XL5, just with a slight kit bash to it. So which was helpful. So
But like those models were never shown particularly close up because they were quite small, not necessarily very well detailed because of just the speed of the production. They were like, we've just got to make this model as quickly as possible. So you're not necessarily shown it really close up. But now with this manual, you're able to kind of go in and like, okay, here's what if we had been able to get really close to these ships and have these beautiful shots of them, this is what it would have looked like. So it's definitely a real treat. So if you like your little details and all your little one-off craft and like the idea of them all kind of fitting together into one universe, then this is definitely the book for you. That's for sure.
I think actually Downbeat, the artwork for Downbeat was the first artwork I did in the entire project. So they kind of decided...
well, you got to start somewhere.
And but then you sort of have this thing where in the other books, like all the vehicles are on all the various biomes, like flying in space and flying on land and stuff. Whereas Stingray, they're either on the ocean or under the ocean or in a dry dock. So that was kind of a challenge, trying to vary the artwork style. Like there's going to be a lot of blue in this, I'm afraid. But we do have, there's a nice shot of like Sea Pro broken through the Arctic ice and things like that. Or Orca and its construction bay.
Yeah. Yeah, well, obviously, as well as all of those vehicles, we have some equipment as well. The Stinger sidearm, which is a very unique design for a sidearm. How do you go about taking a look at a prop like that and going, how do I make this look credible?
Yeah, I think the thing about the sidearm is that they clearly designed them, used them like a little bit, and then sort of regretted them because they ended up bringing in regular guns anytime they needed to fire them later on, except for a few exceptions. But again, that brings you over to like, okay, well, narratively, why would they do that, and why would they have all this stuff? And I came up, and it's canonically meant to be a gas gun anyway. So in terms of logically trying to work out why it looks that way, it ended up being the idea of like it's a bulletless gun that you could fire in a submarine, like in an enclosed environment that would be safe, but also be able to disable your target if you needed it to. So I do love the design. Like we ended up doing a run of these earlier in the year as part of the anniversary, and they do look quite nice in the hand.
They're very nice.
Yeah, and they have, there's like one close-up shot which actually shows it spinning. Is that right? Am I remembering that correctly?
You see, they use the close-up version in Marineville Trader, Hostages of the Deep, and Christmas to Remember.
There you go. God, he knows it just off the top of his head. It's almost like he's been writing a book all about Stingray.
It's almost like I've been trying to get every single piece of reference I can.
Yeah. Well, so Chris, you've been handling that side of things. AC, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about the parts of the book that you've been working on as well.
Oh, you've sprung this on me out of nowhere, Jack. I didn't expect to have to talk about this sort of stuff, but I'll give it my best shot. Also, that wasn't supposed to be a pun about a gun and shots. Whatever. We'll just skip on past that. So, as I have done a few times before with previous manuals, I have been working on character biographies, fleshing out a little bit about our favorite characters. And, you know, as was reasonably common in most of Gerry's shows, we don't actually learn that much about the regular characters. You know, they've got little bits of their background that are hinted at and little instances. I think Marina and Commander Shore probably fare the best in that sense. Commander Shore especially, he has a whole episode that deals with part of his backstory. So that was good from that perspective. There's plenty to draw from there. Some of the other sources for that information, I kind of had to get a little bit creative without going outside the established canon of those characters within the show. So hopefully people will enjoy that. And the other major part that I had to go through was detailing little bits about Marineville and its various installations, much like I did with Space City in the previous Fireball manual. And Marineville, thankfully, a little bit more straightforward to explain than Space City was. For example, I didn't have to explain why any buildings revolve for no apparent reason. the fact that they do move is very nicely and neatly
I was going to
explained.
say, you swap spinning for going up and down, though.
Yep.
So not that
but
much easier.
At least we have a good reason for that. And one of the most fun things about that whole process, and I suspect Chris had a bit of fun with this as well with the various other WASP vehicles, is that in the show, Stingray is the craft. I mean, it's the ship. WASP is basically a one-ship organization. Like, so looking at that and going, well, it's the World Aquanaut Security Patrol. Of course, they have dozens of other craft doing all sorts of different mission parameters. Where would they be stored? Where would they launch from? How does that work? And just coming up with plausible reasons that, again, stay within the framework of what's been established in the show. We're not breaking canon here. We're not going leaps and bounds of logic and saying that everything happens magically by a flick of a switch. It's all very grounded in what we learn in the series. And that was just a heck of a lot of fun to do and really sort of satisfying to think, well, what happens after they fire the hydromic missiles or the interceptor missiles? How do they get other missiles in place? Like, where do they come from? Where is the Marineville armory with all this stuff in it? And something that I'd never really given too much consideration to was, if you think about the Marineville control tower sitting in the middle of the complex, you know, it's there. It's got everything inside it, the control room, the standby lines, the injector bay. And you don't pay too much attention to it. You think, try and phones and Marina, they get into the injector bay, they get deposited down through the buildings into Pen 3 and Stingray, and they go on their merry way to save the world. Except for the fact that those buildings have to come down during battle stations, so somehow that launch track has to be like twice as high as you think it is, because there's a whole subterranean silo that it has to go through, first of all. And it just raised so many questions that were quite fun to talk around and solve and give little subtle Easter eggs and hints there while doing it. So it's been a blast.
Yeah, and it's great. You've packed all of that into one book.
Yeah.
How many? What's the total page count for this one, guys?
About 250, I think.
Wow. Okay, so lots.
Actually,
lots to get into.
Sorry, 150. Sorry, my brain went there.
150. Okay.
Yeah. The next one.
We'll make sure that for the next one, Chris knows how to count. But once we get to that,
I blame Thunderbirds. Okay. You know, counting backwards from 5, it really screws you up.
That's true. That's very true. Not that that's teasing what may or may not be next or anything like that.
Of course not.
Anyway, so yes, now let's talk about this beauty. Let's talk about this. Maybe AC, you could tell us a little bit about where Orca comes from and what its origins are and how it plays in and what it's doing in this manual.
Okay, to answer those questions in the order which they were asked, if I can remember already. This is Orca. It is, as I intimated before, WASP's new attack submarine. It has been in development for a little while. So during our new Deadly Uprising narrative, it's already been on the back burner, being slowly developed in the background. And due to, well, I'll not give too much away, but circumstances within the narrative, its development is rushed forward to bring it to a point of completion so that it can launch to meet some new threats. It's about twice the size of Stingray. It's faster than Stingray. It's more heavily armored. It's got weapon systems, the likes of which we have not seen before in Stingray itself, and indeed within the show. It's very advanced. It has a larger crew. It sort of dispenses with all of Stingray's scientific mission parameters, as the captain of the Orca says at one point, we're not here for joyrides and undersea tea parties, which is probably a very, very harshly worded on his behalf. But yes, here it is in its construction bay, in dry dock number 1, bay 2. And it's being attended in the final stages of its constructions. We can see on the dorsal surface there's a little sort of oval cutout, which is where one of its aquapods go, which is the upgraded larger form of one of Stingray's aqua sprites. And the design process behind this was quite cool, actually, because Chris came up with the original design, and I'll let him go about how he did that in a moment. But the other thing that we had to take into account was that the wonderful Bob Ayres had written Project Orca, or was in the process of writing Project Orca, and did have, thank you very much, my glamorous assistant, did have quite a few parameters that, for the purposes of his story, needed to be believably incorporated within this design. So it was quite a collaborative process, but I will hand over to my learned colleague there to give you a little more info about that.
Yeah, so again, this was one of the first things I did because I knew I wanted to take my time on the Orca, and I knew I was going to be very busy in 24. So I figured I would get this done pretty much right out the gate. But yeah, when you're sort of having to come up with, like, Stingray is the most impressive, coolest submarine in the ocean. And like, there's not much that can really.
Ian's put it pretty well here. It's a good-looking craft, but it will never ever replace Stingray. I mean, that's a lot of pressure for you, Chris.
Well, that's the thing. It's just like canonically as well. Like, Stingray is the best sub, and so you have to work with, okay, so how can you improve on that from a technical point of view, like an in-universe point of view. And so my idea was to dial back. Like, Stingray is an exploration craft more than it is a tactical craft. So it was basically to double everything that makes Stingray like sort of a war machine. So you've got twice the torpedoes, you've got all the additional weapons, you've got a much bigger rate master, and then the secondary propulsion units are much bigger. And then also, just to give it a really ominous kind of like the black, white, and silver look, but also stick to the original Stingray silhouette to some degree, just to make it feel like it was in the same universe. So I'd originally envisioned it to be about a little bit bigger than Stingray. I think now it's about 33% bigger at the minute. It's in the lineup from earlier, but Bob had some ideas he wanted to incorporate, and he wanted something that was much more traditional as a submarine, I think. And we ended up kind of meeting in the middle somewhere with a lot of mainly because I think it still needed to be fast. Like, Stingray's advantage is its speed and its maneuverability beyond everything else. So it needed to be better than that. And I think everything kind of grew out from there.
Yeah. A lot of people in the chat saying Stingray can't be replaced. How can you? It's like, don't worry, everyone. In the context of the story,
Stingray is binned, and this is the new Stingray.
It makes
no more
why
Stingray
is being binned. Of course, we all love Stingray. We're not like. It's good that you're all feeling this way. Let's put it that way. It makes sense that you feel this way, and we agree with you. Jeffrey Page there just asking if there are any other views of Orca. I don't have any here. Chris,
you've got the side view in the Spotter's Guide.
That's true.
Yeah,
we do. There we go. There's your other view of Orca, the profile kind of side of it. So you can see what Chris was talking about there, about the size of it compared to Stingray. I mean, it's a massive old beast. Not quite as big as some other things, but pretty huge. Yes, but I'm sure, the Orca will be covered in lots and lots of detail in the manual. But it also does bring me on to talk about this, which was announced today, the Battle Lines comic anthology. So switching gears very, very briefly onto a different Stingray book here. This is the second volume of the Stingray comic anthology, which I'm sure AC can tell me a little bit about what's included in here, just to thrust that on you. Tell us a little bit about Battle Lines.
Well, Battle Lines carries on from where our first comic anthology, Tales from the Depths, left off. Tales from the Depths dealt with all the TV21 original strips and 5 brand new comic strips from the Stingray Deadly Uprising saga. Battle Lines picks that up with the Stingray stories that appeared in Countdown, and also includes some later Stingray strips, including the episode adaptations that would have appeared in the 1990s Fleetway Stingray comics. And as in the first volume, also features 5 additional brand new strips from the Stingray Deadly Uprising saga, which actually brings the entire Deadly Uprising narrative to a thrilling 16-page conclusion, drawn by Lee Sullivan, colored by Connor Flanagan, and with letters by Emily Joyce Stewart, and written by Ernie Altbacker, and it will blow your socks off. It is absolutely amazing.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, much more to look forward to. I mean, the Deadly Uprising saga has just been fantastic over the course of this whole year. I mean, what a fantastic way to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Stingray. It's been great. So we wanted to give that a little bit of a mention. Sorry to hijack the technical manual talk for a moment, but I wanted to give this a little bit of a shout out here. But what I also want to do is we've had people asking questions all the way through this stream and also before the stream. So I wanted to spend some time going through viewer questions. If anybody has any other questions, by the way, please leave them in the chat and we will make sure to get to as many of them as possible. And firstly, I'm going to start with from our Podstrom Facebook group. If you're not a member of the official Gerry Anderson podcast group, head over to Facebook and join that, by the way. But I wanted to share a question from Steve Bushell. He asks, how high can Stingray leap into the air? Which of you gentlemen knows the answer to that question?
From the shot, it's about almost twice its length, isn't it? So
yeah. So about let's say 170 feet. It's about 98 feet long. So let's make it slightly less than twice its length.
I guess when it's going at full pelt, it's basically a plane, so it could probably go quite far.
Yeah. I suppose, if it's going at rate 6 and then suddenly leaps out of the water, it's going to go some distance. Yeah, that makes sense. And then Steve also asks, do they wash their own uniforms, or is there a laundrette on site? AC, Marineville Laundry Service, go.
Yeah, there actually is a Marineville laundry service. I haven't given specific details about it in the manual, but there is one of those, along with the famous Marineville supermarket and many other amenities. And in fact, I believe at one point in one of our 2 novels, it mentions that Troy goes to his wardrobe and gets a clean uniform to replace one that has been damaged in a scuffle. So those are done on site, probably to prevent some civilian threat from nicking them. I don't know. Possibly.
Yeah.
That's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. I like it. Tom Clements asks, has it got HEPCAT, WN7, or WN27, World Navy Sub 27, and the Pink Eye Submarine? Chris, which of these are in the book?
So we've got the Pink Eye Submarine. We do touch on World Navy number 27, but it's a World Navy submarine. And HEPCAP is just a civilian submarine, so it's not really part of WASP's complement, I'm afraid. But the Pink Eye Sub is pretty well covered. So
we there you go. Very discerning. You're very you have to meet the grade in order to get into this book. It's very important.
It's one of those things that because you've got to do it from an in-universe point of view. There's areas of how do you tackle X20 because they don't know he exists. So it's one of those things where everything's got to come through that that viewpoint of would WASP really cover this in an actual manual? No.
Yeah.
The Pink Eye Sub is there because it is one of the potential civilizations, and frankly, the one that was closest to wiping out humanity. So you've got to factor in that kind of idea.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That makes total sense. Let's see. Mark Simpson Wedge. Hello, Mark. He wants to know, for the Orca, where did you get the idea of naming it Orca?
So initially for these things, what happens is that Jamie puts up a document. We all put our ideas into the document. They're just throwing paint at a wall. and then it's given to AC to make into something quite more logical. I think is probably the best way to put it. But the new exciting replacement for Stingray, brackets ominous, was quite early on, and I'd put together my own little pitch document, and it's like, right, okay, what are we going to call these things? Because Barracuda and Razorback had already been kind of taken for number like 4 and 5, Submarine 4 and 5. We'd already used Thresher and Swordfish as like the prototypes, and it's like, okay, what aquatic other things are there? And Orca sounded pretty good because there is a sort of a ferociousness to killer whales. Like Stingray is quite nice and like, oh, it's cool, it's Stingray. But like Orca immediately kind of puts you on edge, and that's kind of logic. And also like it fits into the song when we replace Stingray. So
exactly. And also, I think at one point, Chris, you had given me a 3D render of an early design for it. It was just one color at that stage. It was just a sort of a previs render. And I just looked at it and I thought, if you put black and silver on there and kept a bit of that white, and we called it Orca, that would work really well. And I think in Project Orca, the novel itself, Bob actually gives an in-universe reason of why it's called Orca as well. So I know it's not long out, and people might not have read that yet. So I'll not spoil what the reason behind that is, but it is in there as well.
Fair enough. Makes sense. Now, Emily Davis has been asking lots and lots of different questions in the chat, and unfortunately, we don't have time to go through all of them. But I did want to pick out her question about: is there any character bios in the manual? AC, I believe that was your department.
There are indeed. So the manual will focus on basically the main characters, the main Marineville characters. So we have Troy and Phones, Commander Shore, Atlanta, Fisher, and Marina as a honorary member of the WASPs there. Chris, am I correct in thinking that Titan and X20 are handled differently?
Yes. So we have separate sections. So for the WASP characters, it's all done within the first part of the manual. And then for the alien races, they're tackled separately at the end of the manual. And there's that sort of element where in the original comics, or at least from the 90s ones, you had these like in-depth character bios for like Titan and all the other races. And as great as they are, they're stuff that WASP wouldn't necessarily know. So there's an element of trying to sort of translate that into and make them more mysterious as well. Like one thing I really love doing is, and the pink ice aliens are the perfect example of this. We know nothing about them. We have by the end of the episode, we have a ton of pink ice and a wrecked submarine. So you get to put in these little things like there was like the submarine was just a series of tubes, like they weren't like human bipeds or whatever. So you get to play in those lines. But again, with Titan, we do try to cover a bit more of a history of him. Like I think it is referenced he is quite old. Like he's been around a while. So I got to tie that in with like, okay, well, what was Titan doing in World War II? What was Titan doing in the ancient world? How long have the surface agents been affecting like the surface world? I got to have a lot of fun with the solar stars as well because I love the big gun. And why are they underground? Like what drove them there when they were like obviously technically more adept than a lot of the other races and stuff. So yeah, instead of like specific character bios, they tend to get more of a history, if that makes any sense, of like the city and the organization or whichever.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. We have so many questions coming in, guys, and I want to make sure we get through. So I'm gonna now set you the challenge of doing quick fire questions. So like short yes or no answers. Are you ready, guys? Are you ready?
Definitely.
Sam Ollie asks, did you figure out why the knobbly bit at the front of the gun spins? Yes or no? Did you figure it out? Good.
Yes.
Right. Next question. Chris, how long does it take you to make these images?
Yes. It depends on the image. So that Orca image, for example, I think when you really factor it in, the Orca took about a week to design on and off, and then the image itself is cobbled together out of bits of old manuals. It's actually the same shipyard that Skydiver's in the UFO one. I've just redressed it, and there's bits of the Space 1999 technical manual in there as well. So
nice.
It can, like, in theory, I'd spend an evening doing all the 3D elements, then I'd spend a couple of hours in the morning doing the Photoshop, the sort of element, like painting over it and stuff. But the modeling of it takes the longest, and that can take a good couple of days per vehicle.
Yes, and we do also have to remember that this is all Chris Thompson time, in which you rarely sleep. So, you know, he has more hours than the rest of us mere mortals have.
It's been a year.
All right, William Schwartz asks, have you included the mini sub that Shaw has injured him from Ghost of the Sea?
Yes, it was in the Spotter's Guide.
Lovely. Emily asks, is there any water features in Marina's bathroom or her apartment?
Probably.
Does it
there
tap
will be episodes?
There will be a tap, that's for sure. Emily also asks, did you include the pirate ship from, I assume you mean the ghost ship episode?
We
the
don't.
galleon.
I think we covered it in general stuff, but we didn't actually include the pirate ship.
I have a subsection to that, a sub question to that. Is the Arcadia included, which is mentioned in the ghost ship but never seen?
No, the Arcadia is not included, I'm afraid.
However, I have an alternate rebuttal to that. While Chris is quite correct, the Arcadia is not included in the manual. It will be glimpsed in Comic Anthology 2 Battle Lines.
My lucky day. See, I'm so lucky to be joined by all these experts.
I am so glad the Arcadia is so important to you, Jack.
It really is. Jeffrey Page asks, do you cover Agent X20's house?
Again, we can sort of cover it in a sort of like a tangential way, but as far as W.A.S.P is concerned, the X20's house is home to a psychiatrist that, yeah, so...
That is very true.
We can allude to the island of Lemoy, and we do, like, because there's been mysterious stuff happening there. But ultimately, they don't. Well, it's psychiatrist's house and an old man's house, because isn't it? They go there twice.
Yeah,
so,
different weird old guys happen to live there at various points in the series, and no one ever questions it. Yeah, that is definitely a thing.
But we do Titanica and Solar Star and all those things, and obviously Marineville and
everything that the W.A.S.P know exists. They try and cover it as best as they can. I mean, as we've said, you've got 150 pages and can't necessarily include everything, but my goodness me, it sounds like you've included a lot. So thank you very much for taking part in that quick fire question. So I have to say I'm exhausted from all of that. So I tell you what, how about we have a quick break? How about we sit down and enjoy some vintage Stingray adverts? How does that sound, everybody? Does that sound fun?
Fantastic. Let's do that.
lovely.
All right, let's do that. We'll see everyone in about 5 minutes. Enjoy some ads.
Stand by for action.
Friday nights never to be the same. Underwater action, Gerry Anderson style.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
We have less than a week.
And the good guys versus the bad guys.
All the knowledge in the world with one push of a button.
In The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
You don't understand. You're gonna get killed.
A truly cultural experience this Friday from 6 on BBC Two.
Anything can happen in the next half minute.
Hot dang. What now?
Now we
hit the hut. Get a kid's soft drink in a special Stingray cup, plus a kid's cheese and tomato pizza for $2.99 at Pizza Hut.
Did one of you gentlemen order a crab?
No, thanks. We got the Stingray parked outside. For a Stingray meal,
hit the hut.
Under the vast oceans of the world lie hordes of aquatic aliens preparing to overcome the peoples of the Earth. Preventing them in their supersonic underwater craft Stingray are Captain Troy Tempest, Phones, Mariner, and the other heroic members of the World Aquatic Security Patrol.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
On 10 thrilling Stingray videos, our heroes try valiantly to suppress the invaders of the deep.
The evil Titan has finally devised a cunning plan to capture Captain Troy Tempest and the Stingray crew. And all he had to do was send off the special tokens on Weetabix packets.
Stand by for action. We're about to launch Stingray. Acceleration rate 6380. Unidentified craft approaching. All stick on. Full speed reverse.
Why not launch your own Stingray? Price 75 shillings in your toy store now.
Boy, oh boy, a Lincoln toy.
Stand by for action.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Prepare to evacuate.
The very best from the legendary Gerry Anderson. Super Mario Nation Spectaculars, digitally remastered as you've never seen them before. With the release of all 39 digitally remastered episodes of cult classic Stingray on video and DVD.
We are about to launch Stingray.
Relive the underwater adventures of the World Aquanaut Security Patrol.
You can say that again.
Or meet them for the very first time.
Wow, this is a real pleasure.
As they battle Titan, evil tyrant of the underwater world.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
Stingray, all 39 episodes, out to own on video and DVD.
Hi there, fans. Stand by for Cool Off with Lion's Maid. New Supersonic Zoo, the big ice lolly with free picture cards. Hey, get this. New Super Sea Jet, a 3-flavor knockout. And the first ice lolly specially for girls. It's fab. Unfasten your seatbelts, lolly lickers. Cool it with Lion's Maid. On sale now.
Gee, sounds like there's an emergency back at Marineville.
There sure is, Troy.
It's vital we tell our BBC viewers about Countdown, the next episode of Stingray. Good thinking, Commander Shore. If they missed it, they'd sure be upset, especially when they hear about Titan's fiendish plot to blow us all sky high. Leave it to me. This is a viewer alert. An explosive episode of Stingray begins at 6 o'clock this Friday on BBC Two. Miss it at your peril.
Well, I love that. That was amazing.
I miss Pizza Hut.
I mean, you can still get Pizza Hut, Chris. They have managed to stick around. What I was going to say was anyone who thought that Stingray was about to appear on BBC Two, I'm sorry to say that advert's about 30 years old, but, you know.
I've never seen it before.
It was a good time. You never seen that one before?
Oh, I've never seen it. I never saw one of the other ones as well. I can't remember which one it was. Very questionable quarter flipped upside down shot of Thunderbird 1 launching in that DVD advert. Not sure what they were doing there, but fair enough.
Just making it up as they went along, I'm sure.
I'm wondering where I should have put the cat scaring light into Stingray in the tech manual.
No, wasn't that terrifying? I was like, that advert was creepy. Did not like
We're
that.
about to launch Stingray.
but it looks like a lot of people in the chat were enjoying a little bit of 90s nostalgia. I can't say better than that. And very neatly, this brings me into some more 90s nostalgia, because we're going to briefly step away from Stingray and we're actually going to talk about Space Precinct.
Look at that.
Wasn't
Isn't that
that
just
an
lovely?
elaborate ruse to get you to talk about Space Precinct?
Yes, so I wanted to have a quick chat about Space Precinct because the 30th anniversary Blu-ray box set is available now to pre-order from the Gerry Anderson store, and I think it looks fantastic. I'm so excited for this. And well, I mean, I'm just going to list off some of the special features that are included. So as well as the 24 beautifully restored HD episodes of Space Precinct, we also have a 2-hour documentary from Chris Dale all about the making of the series. We have series 2 test footage. Oh, you've watched it already? Oh, yeah. Well, some people are in a privileged position, that's for sure. We also have Series 2 test footage, episode commentaries, music and effects audio tracks, the Space Police Star-Lord's pilot film that's also been restored in high definition. We've got feature-length compilation editions of some of the 2-part episodes. I mean, a whole bunch of other special features. But there's one in particular that I feel that some of the people on this stream might be able to talk to us about. And well, it's Lost Little Robot, which is a minisode all about slow-mo. Chris, we're about to watch an exclusive clip from this minisode, but perhaps you can tell us a little bit going into it. What is this this slow-mo special feature?
So a couple of months back, I was talking to Jamie, and the possibility of doing something for the Space Precinct release came up. Because we don't have that much opportunity to do live action stuff at the minute, just because we've got so much else on. When I threw in some pictures, and then a couple of months ago, he was like, "Cool, the deadline is quite soon." But we were able to rise to the occasion. We got it in. We ended up. It made sense to, obviously, if you don't really have access to most of the original cast, then slow-mo was kind of the obvious choice, and Gary Martin was up for it, which is really, really nice. But also we set out a casting net in Belfast, and we found Jade O'Neill, who is our lead actor in slow-mo as well, and she did a marvelous job with it, particularly as I'm sure after the clip you're going to show what she had to act against.
Well, let's take a quick look before we spoil anything further. Here is an exclusive clip from slow-mo Lost Little Robot.
A moment.
You just cost me a lot of money, Gizmo.
Slow-mo.
Whatever. Diverting to Altor puts me days out of my way. Now, I'm gonna give you a choice. You can either spend the rest of the trip in that supply closet, or you give me a reason to let you leech off my energy reserves.
You mentioned using my CPU for spare parts for a nav computer.
Those were the days.
Well, if I interface with your navigation system, I could use my database to recalculate your itinerary. Possibly put you ahead of schedule.
There's an interface over there. Knock yourself out.
SPA. No, this goes here, and this goes there. No, here.
Amazing stuff. Really, really bravo. Bravo.
I probably
well
should have
done.
said up front. This takes place during the episode "The Snake" when Slow-Mo gets blown out the airlock halfway through the episode, and then turns up at the end with Fredo saying he was found by a space tug next to a nebula.
Amazing. So you're telling the story that we never got to see on screen 30 years later. I mean, it's incredible stuff.
In the year of our Lord 2024, there is now more Space Precinct.
Yeah, I mean, so lucky to have that. And yeah, amazing to have Gary Martin back voicing Slow-Mo. I mean, just slips straight back into the character. And Jade O'Neill there taking on the starring role. You know, as people saw, you know, it's animated, the CG environments, it's a complicated short film to make. And we have some behind the scenes photos showing what it was really like. And even in the corner there, AC, it looks like you're maybe responsible for something that looks like Slow-Mo, but I don't know. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is in the bottom bottom left corner there?
Yes, that is our boy Slow-Mo right there. And my responsibilities on set that day included reading in Slow-Mo's dialogue and a little bit of puppeteering of his head. He did have a torch embedded in the front of his head / shoebox. And I moved that around in time with what he was saying so that we would get the physical effect of the light on Jade's face when she was giving the performance. And have to say, full credit to her. She was completely prepared during the shoot, knew the lines backwards and forwards, knew the characters' motivation and everything, and really made the whole thing a lot simpler than it otherwise would have been. So absolutely fantastic.
She effectively, because obviously, yeah, she's essentially acting against what looks suspiciously like a shoebox on a stick. You know, that's not an easy acting job, one might say.
Oh no, she was really good at it, and she was completely off book as well. And we shot this in 2 days in accidental theater, and it ended up being a really nice, easy, simple shoot, which was nice. And yeah, and then it's actually it's quite a complicated film. There's like quite an intense action scene at the end of it. Not going too much into spoilers. I think it ended up being about 320 special effects shots in total, which I ended up doing in a month. So,
as we say, you do not sleep.
Yeah, but the final thing is about 20 minutes long, and
so that process then of taking, you know, you've got your reference, which is the shoebox Slow-Mo, which is what I'm going to call it. What's then how complicated is it then to turn that into an all singing, all dancing CG version of Slow-Mo?
Well, funnily enough, like if people followed my work and AC's as well, originally we used to do a lot of green screen films back in the day, and it's you sort of I myself get quite used to be able to direct the thing, because I think a lot of people, whenever they film stuff on green screen, they tend just to put the background up and then they sort of forget that they have to do shot composition as well. So the challenge is to remind yourself to do interesting angles and stuff. The advantage of having a Slow-Mo stand-in was there was always a worry that Slow-Mo might alter in height if you've got nothing to look at, and also maintain a constant eye line, and also Jade interacts with it, like you'll sort of poke him and kick him and whatnot, because Captain Garnet is it's a very grumpy character with a lot of backstory and growing to do. But yeah, over time, like it means you've got a constant height reference for the 3D model, and it was a very quick build, but it kind of helped that he was a bit messed up after getting blown out the airlock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think my idea behind the film was to I love how 90s Slow-Mo is. Like, he is the quintessential 90s beep boop. I'm going to find them using my modem robot. And I really... yes, Stacey. And I think I kind of envisaged Jade's character, Captain Garnet, as, like, flying out of Battlestar Galactica or something. Like, a very modern sci-fi character that's quite edgy and has, like, has a pretty traumatic backstory, and having to deal with this extremely optimistic, we should help people robot, and just like to see how those two interact, and then sort of character arc over the course of the 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's not give too much away, of course, but if you want to watch Lost Little Robot, then you should go ahead and pre-order the Space Precinct 30th Anniversary Blu-ray box set, which is available on the Gerry Anderson store right now. But that was Space Precinct. I managed to get my quick kind of Space Precinct chat in there. But the main thing that we're talking about today is, of course, Stingray. So I just want to remind people as well that you can go and order the W.A.S.P Technical Operations Manual, also on the Gerry Anderson store right now. But since we've answered a lot of questions about it and had a lot of talk about the manual, I thought maybe now is a good time for us to play a game. So, gentlemen, if you're ready, we're going to be playing. Unfortunately, I don't have an intro for this. I would love to have a big dramatic intro, so I'm going to try and do it just by myself. We're going to be playing Top 5 Terror. That's the name I've given it, Top 5 Terror. The idea behind this game is I've asked the guys to come to this stream with a rough idea in their heads of what their top 5 Stingray episodes are. And I'm sure everyone in the chat has their own opinion of what their favorite episodes of Stingray might just be. Well, basically, we're going to take it in turns to pick episodes to include in our individual top 5s. But here's the catch is, once an episode has been taken, you can't reclaim it. So there might be a little bit of competition between us, and we might have to kind of change our minds a little bit on the fly about what our top 5 is going to be. So we're each going to take it in turns, picking an episode to form our top 5. And then at the end of it all, everyone who is watching us gets the opportunity to choose who's got the best top 5. Which of us is truly the best Stingray fan out of the three of us? So I'm looking forward in the chat to hearing what everyone... People are already joining in. Like, yes, it's going to be a bit of a controversial game. And yes, I'm sure Emergency Marineville will come up because it is a fantastic episode. That's just going to kind of spoil it a little bit. But anyway, we're going to alternate who goes first each round so that we have a little bit of fairness. It's not just Chris picking all his favorites and the rest of us having to kind of choose between them. So but on this particular round, we'll start with Chris.
Hello,
Chris. Choose an episode to go into your top 5, and bear in mind, maybe make it one that one of us might pick so that you ultimately end up the winner of this ridiculous competition that we're having.
It's like, pick your favorite episode, but also pick your favorite episode that's popular.
Be tactical. Be tactical. That's all I'm saying. Just be
I
careful.
think one I'd like to take off the board quite quickly, and I just like it because it's I think it's one of the quintessential Stingray episodes, and it's the big gun.
Okay.
And it's got a cool alien race. It's got cool action in it. I love the ending when Stingray's like getting crushed and all that stuff. So,
yeah, no, I think that's a good choice. I also would have picked that one. So already I'm having to rethink my list. So thanks for that. But AC, I'm going to hand over to you to pick make your first choice for your top 5.
It's got to be Loch Ness Monster. First one I ever saw. Will always have a special place in my heart.
Okay. Well, yeah. That's 2 from my list already gone. I should have thought about this more. Let me see. I'm going to stick with Emergency Marineville just because for me it is like the definitive Stingray episode. I think it does everything that you want. If you're going to show anyone an episode of Stingray, I think that's the one, personally. So there you go. Let's see. Let's go back to AC. Your turn to pick one now. I'm going to try and randomize this so it's not like totally biased towards Chris.
Oh, there are so many. Like, I might be alone here, but I don't think there's an episode of Stingray that I would call a bad episode or a boring episode. I think there's something there's something about Stingray where every episode has something to recommend it. So this is really difficult. But I think just from a tactical point of view, I'm going to have to pick the master plan because it's like a movie in episode format.
I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to do that. I had my eye on that one. Oh, okay. Well, again, I'm gonna step in now, and I'm gonna pick. I genuinely don't know. I'm gonna go with the Ghost of the Sea because there's some beautiful atmospheric stuff. Obviously, the character work is extraordinary. It's very mysterious and just a really. It's an unusual episode, and I think that makes it something quite special. So. Yeah, that would be my pick. Chris, you're up now.
Because there's a bunch of Stingray episodes I like for key reasons, but they're not necessarily popular. I'm going to go for Pink Ice because it is one of my favorite episodes, and it does kind of tie in with I love it when Stingray gets a bit weird.
Okay.
I agree.
So
great episode.
Oh, AC, you agree? Okay, so Pink Ice is pretty far down my list, I have to say, just because it's absolute nonsense. Like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Of course not. But the entire world suddenly gets covered in pink ice and they don't know what to do about it. Oh, wait, we'll fire some missiles at it. And
Jack, why don't they just nuke Titanica, like...
True. I admit it has to be drawn out to a certain extent. But
engage with the filmmaking process, Jack.
Okay, all right. Fine. AC, why don't you pick another one?
This is
having
tough.
a moment.
This is tough. This is really tough. I think for the same reason.
Quite a few suggestions coming in from the chat. Doug Morris is saying Subterranean Sea. Daniel Dudley, Invisible Enemy. Daniel Dudley also saying, I didn't like the Golden Sea. That one was terrible. So I guess don't pick the Golden Sea.
Okay, I'll not pick the Golden Sea. I think what I'll do this time is I will, for similar reasons to why I picked the master plan, I'm going to go for Marineville Trader. It's
that's also on my list.
The first time you watch it, when you have no idea what's going to happen, it actually hits you quite hard. I mean, you've got a vague inkling that this can't be what it seems, but I don't see how it could be anything else. And then it gives you the twist ending, and it's like, yeah, this is very satisfying.
Am I wrong that it's the only episode not to feature Stingray as well?
That is correct. It is the only episode not to feature Stingray.
Which is madness, but also it kind of goes to show that because it sort of comes after the halfway point of the series, like they're starting to focus on the characters and like doing a lot more interesting kind of character-driven drama, which I think is some of Stingray's best moments is some of the character stuff that they do. So yeah, can't blame you for picking Marineville Traitor there. Chris, I'm going to let you take the next one.
There's two I'm kind of torn between. And I'm going to go for the Subterranean Sea.
It's very good.
Okay.
It's very good, but also I like it sort of, there's not really a villain in it. It's, again, sort of Stingray up against sort of weird nature stuff.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Again, another episode that I'm like, that's a very like archetypal. If you're going to show anyone a Stingray episode, show them that one because it covers all the sort of weird exploration type stuff that they do. So yeah, no, that's a very, very good pick. I'm going to go now with an episode that I don't think a lot of people like, but it's always been my favorite. And that is, I can't actually see it on my list. There it is. The Invaders. See, I know I was criticizing Pink Ice for being a, mad, story that doesn't make any sense. But the Invaders, they've got a brain reading chair. They managed to modify a WASP weather station seemingly overnight.
There's two of them.
There's only two of them, and yet they claim to have a whole invasion fleet on the way. But there's something about it that's just really
My brain always,
exciting.
The lead invader always, I think of Anthony Hopkins for some reason. It's John Tracy and Anthony Hopkins take over Marineville.
I'd pay to see that.
Yeah. Definitely. AC, you're next to pick, I think.
There's still a lot of heavy hitters on the board there, and people are giving some fantastic suggestions as well. Just to highlight Roger's comment there, I do love Tom Thumb Tempest as well, and it does suffer from a cop-out ending, and it is one of those there are 3 or 4 Stingray dream episodes, or at least episodes that have dream sequences in them.
Yeah.
What am I going to do here?
Quite a few people suggest, and this is an interesting tactic. Choose Aquanaut of the Year, because you get the best of several episodes in that.
Yeah, because you get
it's up to you. I don't know whether everyone in the chat will agree with that, but it's an interesting tactic.
I don't know. I think that would go against you as well. Like if you pick the clip show episode.
Yeah, I think it might. I'll go on then. I think I will go for that wonderful episode that I love, Stand By for Action. I love the meta nature of the filmmaking process. The same sort of thing that we see in episodes like UFO, Mindbender, anything where it's a movie within a movie kind of thing, and I love that sort of stuff.
Yeah. No,
also,
really
Johnny Swanara.
Oh, we know you do like a bit of Johnny Swanara. You have made that known. Well, actually, on a similar note to that, I am going to swoop in and choose Titan Goes Pop.
I was like, the 2 funny ones are on the board.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you gotta love it. If you don't get Stand By for Action, you pick Titan Goes Pop, because the reaction to Duke Dexter is just extraordinary, and I quite like the song as well. I have to say, I've got something to
very
shout
catchy.
About. I won't be singing it for you tonight, but you know, maybe on a future stream we'll do some karaoke. It'll be a great time. Chris, you're next to pick.
There's 2 I'm looking at for similar reasons, and they're just like really good episodes that don't drag and have really good elements in them. And I'm just trying to choose between them. But I think I'm going to go for Tune of Danger. And the reason is, 1, I don't have a single episode that Titan features in. But 2, I actually thought this episode was a dream. This one and Invisible Enemy, I never saw in their original broadcast run. I think I must have seen bits of it. So I remember thinking I dreamt Troy in the burning building, and I remember thinking that the Invisible Enemy was just this fever dream of an episode. But also Tune of Danger, I think it's really cool. Like, you've got that ticking clock, you've got Troy in the burning building. It's really well directed. So
yeah. Oh, it's amazing. I always, whenever I watch Tune of Danger and see that scene, in the burning shack, I always feel so sorry for the puppeteers up on the bridge, just above all this huge fire. They do not hold back on that. It must have been crazy to film. And for similar reasons, I'm going to swoop in and make my last choice here. I'm going to go with Set Sail for Adventure, because the storm sequences in that one, oh my goodness me, it's some of the best shot Super Marination stuff ever. And Stingray has a lot of those moments that are just like, wow, I can't believe they went for it here. And yeah, Set Sail for Adventure has some amazing storm sequences in it. So for that alone, I've got to pick it as my number 5. But I don't know. Let's see. AC, your final choice. I think there's a lot of good stuff still on the board. This is the thing.
A lot of good stuff.
We've got plenty of good stuff to choose from.
Interesting that no one's gone for the pilot.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's like the inverse of Thunderbirds. It's a good episode, but it wouldn't be sort of. It is very by the numbers. It's which as far as Stingray is concerned is great, because Stingray's paint by numbers is awesome, but it just doesn't. It's just missing a little something, I think. And I might be shooting myself in the foot here, especially since I know exactly how Jack feels about this episode, and I should probably do something a little more.
Well, I've had my 5. I've picked my 5. I'm out.
I know, but I know you think it's. I know you think it's a particularly weak episode, but I think I'm going to have to go for a nut for Marineville.
Oh no, you're not going to pick a nut for Marineville. What are you, 5? Come on. I'm sorry. I have strong feelings about a nut for Marineville. It's a if we're talking about nonsensical Stingray episodes, that is up there as the one that makes the least sense.
Yeah, having to explain what Noctis and Group's plan was in terms of attacking Stingray, and then just kind of going home. Or Stingray
they arrive, they're fully prepared to attack Stingray, and then they just swan off home, and then they come back 24 hours later, and sure enough, just enough time to let the wasps figure out what to do about it. Like, no, I'm sorry. Ridiculous, but fine. AC, if you want a nut for Marineville in your top 5, and you want the chat to judge you rightly or wrongly for that, then you go ahead. Chris.
Whatever, dude. I've got the master plan.
So that's true. God, you're well queued up with good episodes. All right, Chris, your final.
I'm going to show my working here because, like, of the ones I would pick that are left, it would probably be either Deep Heat, Invisible Enemy, the Lighthouse Dwellers, or Echo of Danger, which are kind of. I love how, particularly the Lighthouse Dwellers. I love how like atmospheric it is. And it's the one I'm probably going to go for, to be honest. Like, again, it doesn't necessarily make the most sense, but particularly the first half of the episode where you don't really know what's going on. And like the lighthouse sequence is so atmospheric. And then the second half when your guy's trying to get onto Stingray.
And just happens to have a little post-it pad and a pen.
Yes, very helpful indeed. I'm just going to zoom in quickly on our final choices. So, everyone in the chat, who do you think did the best here? We have Chris Thompson. His top 5 came out with The Big Gun, Pink Ice, Subterranean Sea, Tune of Danger, and The Lighthouse Dwellers. Andrew Clements picked Loch Ness Monster, The Master Plan, Marine Filtrator, Standby for Action, and for some reason he picked a nut for Marineville. Meanwhile, I have come along with the I think the best choice, of course. Emergency Marineville, Ghost of the Sea, Invaders, Titan Goes Pop, and Set Sail for Adventure. In the chat, who do you think did the best out of all of us? I mean, CJ is just trying to annoy me, clearly.
I think the interesting thing is that you could easily go for any of these because we all like the same episodes.
I know, they're all really great.
Looking at them, I would happily sit and watch any of those selections of 5. I really would.
Yeah. Thank you, Peach, for choosing me. Thank you, Ian, for choosing me. Thank you, Watson, for choosing me. I mean, okay, great. Button Moon has chosen UAC. Roger chooses Chris, then Nutty Andrew, apparently.
So I'm in it twice, apparently.
Apparently you are, but I am not on there. Rich, come on, you can't
get off the fence, Rich. Make
Get
a
off the
decision.
fence. Don pointing out no one went for In Search of the Taj Mahal, so apparently none of us get his vote.
It was one of the ones I considered, but
it is a really strong one, isn't it? It's really unusual. It's like it's different.
Do you know what it feels like? It feels like an advanced supercar episode.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly that. Yeah. Well, I mean, people have certainly. I'm trying to. It's a pretty broad spread, actually. A lot of people have.
It's almost like the mechanics of this game is the perfect way of averaging any of these.
Well, you know what? Oh, Mark pointing out Hostages of the Deep, also quite a good episode. I mean, I agree with that as well. There's lots of really good Stingray episodes. Apart from a nut for Marineville, I do not understand why AC picked that one. But okay,
would you like me to list my reasons since you haven't actually given me a chance to do that?
Go on then. Why is it so good?
The Tribunal.
Okay. Basically, every enemy that Stingray comes across in the series can almost always be taken out with a single Sting missile. This thing gets hit by 2 and isn't even damaged. Also, when it's initially attacking, Marineville has to fire a bunch of stuff at it just to give Stingray time to launch. Stingray's not even launched by the time their missiles go off, so you get that dramatic moment of Atlanta warning them that Stingray's still in the process of launching, because it is a 10-mile launch tunnel after all. And then you've got Professor Burgoyne and Commander Shore's hilarious little getting off on the wrong foot thing, and then coming to the end of the episode where they grudgingly realize that actually in their own ways, they're both really good people. You see the Marineville cooler blowing up. You have some more hilarity with Shore and Fisher having that little moment in the control tower when he's saying like, I'm just looking out the window, and then arguing a bit, and then I'm just going back to look out the window. Like, I love stuff like that, and I love Marineville at night when everything is quiet and you hear Barry Gray's little music playing in the background there. It's nighttime at Marineville. So yeah, I'm gonna leap over anything, and I'm the bigger person, so I'm not going to say anything nasty about your silly episodes.
Well, all right then. Well, I don't know who we could say was the definitive winner there, because I think we all did a pretty good job at picking our episodes. So well done.
The real Stingray was the friends we made along the way.
Exactly. Everyone's a winner. Everyone's a winner. But I will say I am also surprised that Christmas to Remember, given the time of year, Christmas to Remember didn't get a mention. Would we? Okay. One thing maybe we can all agree on is Christmas to Remember is the best Anderson Christmas episode.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Except for the lost Captain Scarlet Christmas episode, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, yeah. So I mean that goes without saying. But yes, Christmas to Remember is the one that I put on at this time of year. That's for sure. So I hope a lot of other people are going to be doing the same too. But that was it. That was our fun little Stingray game. I enjoyed the debate, gentlemen. I very much enjoyed that. And that unfortunately is almost the end of our time. We have had a fantastic evening chatting with all of you. Daniel, sorry, I just have to call out. Yes, that would have probably been how the Captain Scarlet Stingray Christmas episode went. That's for sure. Anyway, sorry. I just wanted to call that one out. Stingray W.A.S.P. Technical Operations Manual is what we've been talking about a lot of the time this evening. So I just wanted to give that one more shout. If you head over to shop.gerryanderson.com, you can head over there and pre-order your special edition. As I said before, over half of the special editions have now sold out. So if you want to secure your copy, make sure to head over to the store and order that. I believe... Chris, do we know roughly when these will be shipping? I know you're still actively working on this right now. So.
It's probably going to be February, I imagine, at this point. That is on me. My deadline was September, but we had Slow-Mo, we had the concert, we had Doctor Who and Blake 7. Like, it's been a year.
You've been a busy boy. That's for sure. But anyway, you can still pre-order and secure your copies in time for roughly February-ish. So that is that. Chris, AC, thank you very much for joining me this evening. It's been wonderful to chat. And let's do this again sometime, shall we? Yes, we'll have you back.
We should be friends in real life too. Not just on the
screen. That would be a good idea. Yeah. I guess. As long as we don't have to sit down and watch enough for Marineville, that will be fine with me. So I think it's time to say goodnight to everyone. Thank you all very, very much for watching. It's been great to see all your comments coming in, and we hope to see you again very, very soon. And of course, it's a Stingray stream, so there's really only one way for us to end, and that is, well, actually, it's with an exclusive clip from the Stand By for Action 2 concert. So let's play us out with that, shall we?
Marina,
Aquamarina.
What are these strange enchantments that start whenever you're near? Marina, Aquamarina.
Why can't you whisper the words that my heart is longing to hear?
You're magic to me,
a beautiful mystery.
I'm certain to fall, I know.
because you enthrall me so.
Marina, Aquamarina, why don't you say that you'll always stay close to my heart?
Wait a minute, Stingray's a submarine?